such a beautiful blessing to be together, especially on this day of our first beautiful rain of the monsoon season. So we'll start as usual with a question that's come in advance, and then open it up to any questions that anyone here has. I firmly believe that puja and scriptures कोई बात नहीं, कर लीजिएगा काम, फिर शुरू करते हैं। कोई बात नहीं, अच्छा है। Wonderful. I firmly believe that puja and scriptures and tapas and sadhana are beautiful and necessary tools to connect to the divine. Having said that, do they, once the connection is made, then become distractions, actually keeping us separate from God? No, they don't. Assuming that you recognize that these are ways of connecting, but not the connection itself. So this is a core and critical distinction. The sadhana, the meditation, the tapas, all of what we're doing are ways of connecting. They're not God itself. These are things that purify our mind so that we can experience the presence of God. They're like things that clean our window so we can see the sun. Imagine that you're in a room and the sun is shining beautifully outside, but the window of that room is covered with dirt. Well, you won't be able to experience the glory of the sun if the window's closed, if it's covered with dirt, if the curtains are drawn. So all of the sadhana that we do, the tapas that we do, everything that we do is done to clean those windows, to open the curtains, to make us be able to experience the divine. They're not that which brings the divine. Once we've made the connection, well, we have to keep making it. For most of us, we have a beautiful experience of being connected to God. And then what happens? It dissipates. Not from God's side, of course, but from our side. We lose it. We get distracted. We then need to reconnect. As we reconnect, that divine experience begins again. And so all of these practices, the sadhana, the tapas, all of that are things that are used to connect us to the divine. और भैया उधर रहो, है ना? उधर रहो, वहीं बैठ जाओ, बस, thanks. they're things that are used to connect us to God. कोई बात नहीं, बंद कर दीजिए इसको, सब कुछ बस बंद कर दीजिए, है ना, बस आप बैठते रहो, थैंक्स, जैसा है वैसे रहने दो, ठीक है। और कुछ ठीक करना तो कल के लिए ठीक कर लेंगे, है ना, अभी तो बस बैठे रहो। So these practices are critical to our ability to connect with God. Because when our minds are distracted, it's very, very difficult to connect. We see it just for the last 2-3 minutes. Some very sweet boys fixing the sound, moving a fan here and there. People. And yet, if you watch what happens, we were talking about this last night also, everybody's attention goes on that. Very hard to connect, even though actually I am sitting in front of you, in person, speaking. Nonetheless, look what's happening. People come in and sit down and everybody's eyes go, somebody's come in and sat down. This is what we've been talking about the last few nights. Our minds have become so weak that the tiniest little movement in our physical world pulls all of our attention. Somebody coughs, somebody sneezes, somebody moves, somebody's phone vibrates, somebody's whispering to somebody else. Somebody's fidgeting with a fan. Everybody's attention. It's why I stopped them. Because I know we're at a place in our attention these days where we need to not have the outer distractions. The problem is life is full of outer distractions. How many things are you actually going to stop in the outer world? Things are moving, people are moving, sounds are there. The world is on. And that's where our spiritual practices come in. The sadhana we do, the tapas we do, the meditation we do, the japa we do. These are things that allow our minds to become strong enough that I can actually stay focused and anchored and grounded for more than a split second before I am distracted again. Because I need that if I'm going to connect with God. It takes a few minutes, even for those of us who are regular meditators. It still takes a few minutes. You sit down, you close your eyes in the morning or the evening or whenever your meditation time is, or both. And it takes a few moments still to kind of let the rest of the world go and you anchor in. And what these practices do is they keep that window clean so that we can see it. It's like if you've got a lake and you look in the lake to see a reflection of yourself in the lake. Well, if the lake is muddy or turbulent, you're not going to be able to see your reflection. There's a beautiful teaching actually from the life of the Buddha where he had a disciple who came and who said, I sit to meditate, but I'm not able to experience my true self. I'm not able to touch that Buddha nature within. The Buddha said, go to the lake. And when you get to the lake, I want you to take a stick and stir the lake up a bit. Then I want you to look at what it's like and come back and tell me. So the disciple goes and he does as he was told. He stirs up the lake and he comes back and he tells the Buddha, well, the lake is muddy. It's brown. It's moving constantly. You can't see anything in it. And the Buddha says, beautiful. Now sit here for 15 minutes. And in 15 minutes, I want you to go back, look at the lake, and then come and tell me what you see. Don't touch it this time. Just come back and tell me what you see. And the disciple comes back 20 minutes later, and he says, now it is crystal clear. I can see my reflection. The movement has stopped. And the Buddha says, your mind is like this lake. The stick is that which is going on in most of our lives. The movement of our thoughts, the movement of our life. And this is why we sit and we meditate. Because as you sit, slowly, 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 the movement becomes less. Slowly that dirt that has been stirred up in the mind from that constant waves in the mind, slowly it settles. And you actually can see. And so our sadhana, our meditation, our japa, our seva, our yagna, our tapas, all of these practices are practices to teach us discipline. Because obviously it takes discipline to sit like this and not move, especially when it seems like nothing is happening and there's so much to do. It takes discipline. There is absolutely an element of willpower, of discipline that says, I am not going to budge. No matter how much the mind says, you've got a to-do list, better get this done. No matter how much the mind starts to play its games of fear, anxiety, stories, I'm not going to budge. And eventually, the mind calms down. When it realizes it's not having any impact, eventually it quiets down. We anchor in the breath. It helps to quiet the mind. We use a mantra. It quiets the mind. And eventually we are able to see our true self in that crystal clear lake of the mind. But not when it's like the way that it is most of the time. So these practices, while they are not practices that bring God, are practices that are really necessary as long as we have minds that are overactive, as most of us do, as long as we live in a world full of distractions, as most of us do. So the practices do not become distractions. The practices are those that, if done regularly, they're like just cleaning the window. Like we clean the body every day. We clean the window of the mind. Because if we don't clean the body, we start to smell. It's not so nice to be around us anymore. And if we go for too long without cleaning the body, eventually we'll develop even, some kind of infections and stuff, bacteria and whatnot. Well, in the same way, if we don't clean the window of the mind, the first signs are we no longer so nice to be around. Right? We're stressed out, we're frustrated, we're judgmental, we're critical, we're short, we're impatient. And then slowly, we actually start to develop metaphoric infections in our spiritual experience. We start to really develop deep, festering ignorance, illusion. That's the stuff that kills us. It's going to kill our heart and our mind long before it'll kill our bodies. But it squeezes the life out of us while we're still living in our bodies. So just as you couldn't say, well, now that my body is clean, I guess all this water has become a distraction. Say, well, I'm clean today. Great, now I'm going to go about my day. And then I'm going to do it again tomorrow. Because I'm aware that as I've moved through the world, I've gotten kind of sweaty. Maybe I've even actually gotten dirty. So I'm going to clean myself again. And in the same way, until and unless you become fully and completely enlightened, like there is no wavering at all in your mind, you are months or years since any thought of anger or judgment or desire or expectation or resentment or longing. We need to keep doing it. Because all of those are symptoms of a mind window that's become covered. And so we clean it. We keep cleaning it, we keep cleaning it. And ideally, you don't just do it once a day. You may sit for your eyes closed meditation once a day. You may do your yagna ceremony once a day. But ideally, throughout the day, you keep cleaning it. That's what seva is. Every minute and every moment. That's what japa is. Yes, there's a time we sit with our eyes closed, with our mala in hand. But then all day long, every day. Because it keeps cleaning it, keeps cleaning it, keeps cleaning it. So that nothing actually builds up. It just keeps cleaning. So that it's not a matter of once a day we're going to sweep out the mess. But it actually doesn't even allow the mess to build up. So no, our spiritual practices are not distractions. They are that keep us from getting distracted. Are there any questions that anyone here has? Yeah. I think you have to turn it on. There you go.
So in your book, you talk about when you first started to wear your sari and your mother wanted you to take it off. And you said, because I had my first experience with my white sari, and so it was very transformative, even though I'm not in it yet. And I wanted you to talk about how that transformed you in that first moment of going from, regular clothes to
Sure.
your even just to the white and then to the orange.
Mm-hmm. So, on the one hand, our clothes don't matter. They're just that which covers the body. If we're not our body, then we're certainly not the clothes that cover the body. And especially on a spiritual path where it's all about going deeper and deeper and deeper, truer and truer. We focus on I'm not the body, I'm not its color, I'm not its size, I'm not its shape, I'm none of that. So obviously I'm not the clothes it's wearing. When you practice niti meditation, the very first thing that you say, I am not, is my clothes. Before I even get to my skin and my blood and my bones, well, first I'm not the clothes I wear. And yet, our clothes are also a symbol. They're a symbol of our way that we identify as we move through the world. So, for example, being dressed in a pair of ripped jeans, fashionably ripped, the kind that you buy pre-ripped, and a very fashionable sort of spaghetti strap tank top type of thing with, a big belt. And it's a look. It's a fashion statement. There are not just assumptions that people who see it would make about such a fashion statement, but if we were students of psychology, let's say, and we said, okay, put yourself in the mind of someone who chooses that particular attire. We could probably, if we did, an experiment together, and I gave you 4 or 5 different types of dressing. So one was that. Another we'll say was a dress, a kind of loose-fitting, sort of floral patterned, kind of pastel loose-fitting dress that went from, up here all the way down. It was very nice. It was very fashionable, a sort of summer in the southern part of the United States type of dress. Then, another way would be a business attire. Now I'm choosing women for all of these, but obviously it could be men. But another way would be the, we'll call it the, multi-million-dollar suit for business. So the female suit, it's tight-fitting, but it's professional, it's official. Maybe it's got a tie, maybe it doesn't. But it's a power suit. She walks in the room and this woman runs the show. Walks in a boardroom, she runs the show. So we could come up with different attires. And even without knowing these women, and even without being professional psychologists collectively, I think that together we could agree upon, here's how woman A thinks about herself when she gets dressed. Here's how woman B thinks about herself. Here's how woman C thinks about herself. Now, not her full identity, of course. We're not claiming to be, antaryami here, but just a general idea of how she feels about herself as she moves through the world. Because how we dress is one way of how we express how we feel about ourselves, how we identify, how do we want the world to look at us. If I'm wearing a power suit, there's a certain way I want you to look at me, which is different than the way that I might want you to look at me if I were just wearing a very, kind of summery, loose-fitting but fully covered, modest, pastel-y dress. Now, when you think about saris, and you asked me about my experience with my mom, it's a story that I shared in my memoir that just came out this year, Hollywood to the Himalayas. And it's a story about our clothes defining us. And it was a story going back to the winter of, was either 98 or 99. I took sannyas in June of 2000. So it was either the December just before that or 1 year prior to that. And I was back in Los Angeles, and Pujya Swamiji had me under very strict instructions when I was back in California visiting, which was make your parents happy. It was just a one-line instruction. Make your parents happy. Whatever they want you to do, however they want you to dress, just do it. Just make them happy. So, if I was just going out on my own or with friends or with Indian people, I was always in a sari. If I was going out with them, it used to really bother my mother. So when I was going out with them, I would wear typically a salwar kameez, or I would wear like a long flowing skirt and a long flowing top, that felt very modest but looked Western. So that Christmas time, they decided to throw a Christmas party because I was home in LA and they wanted to invite all of their friends. So the day of the party, my mom comes home and she says, I have found the most perfect dress for you. Now, I hadn't even thought about what I was going to wear yet. I just had assumed I was going to go in one of my nicer saris. I was wearing white in those days. Not officially, I hadn't officially taken sannyas yet, but nonetheless, it was what I wore for the few years in advance anyway. And I say, all right, what did you buy? And she's all excited. I mean, she's just giddy with excitement. And she says, you are going to love it. It's perfect. She says it covers everything. Because she knew that was important to me. And she says it goes all the way down to your wrists and all the way down to your ankles, covers everything. And I think, all right. So we go into her room and she pulls out this Ann Taylor box. And she opens it up and she pulls out this Ann Taylor LA evening wear in December dress, meaning to anyone who knows LA evening wear in December, it's black. Because that's what evening wear looks like. So it's black. And I look at it and I'm like, she says, just try it on, try it on, try it on. So I put it on, and the bottom part of it, from the hips downward, flowed out very nicely. But from the hips up, it looked like someone had taken a black paintbrush and had literally painted black paint on my naked body. It was some expensive variety of spandex, basically. Skin tight. And my mom looks at it and she says, oh, it's beautiful, it's beautiful, it's perfect. And I can feel my eyes filling with tears. And I'm just reciting my mantra in my mind, and I'm just telling myself, it's only my body, it's not my soul. It's only my body, it's not my soul. It's only my body, it's not my soul. I really wanted to just make them happy. But I couldn't do it. And I started crying. No matter how much I tried not to, I started crying. And my mom really couldn't understand. She said, "What is the problem? I don't get it. It's beautiful. You're beautiful. It covers everything. What's the problem?" And I said, "Look, if you want to go downstairs to this party and tell your friends a lie about who your daughter is and the life she's living," I said, "that's fine. I have no problem with that. Do it. I'll be very happy to stay in my room. I will meditate. I will work." I said, "But if you want me to go down the stairs to this party, meet your friends, and speak the truth, I can't wear a lie and speak the truth." And I said, "This dress is a lie. It's a lie about who I am and the life I'm living." And so she says, "Fine, wear a sari." And that was it. That was the very last conversation my mom and I ever had about what I was going to wear. And it was funny because I was sharing the story with a mutual friend of ours, mine and my mom's mutual friend, who was at the party. And I took her upstairs to show her the dress. And she said, "My God," she said, "you would have looked like the hors d'oeuvres." And that was exactly, it was just, she had hit the nail on the head of exactly what that dress, what the identity of that dress was. Is it's like, okay, here I am. I'm the hors d'oeuvres. Hors d'oeuvres are the really nice, sweet things that they feed you to eat before the main meal comes, like the yummy snacks. The yummy snacks that they give you before the meal. So, things that are very pleasing to the eye, pleasing to the tongue, that whet your appetite to eat more. And so, when you ask about wearing a sari, for me, it just from the beginning, it was the identification, not of my soul. The soul is the same in anything. The soul is formless, bodiless, certainly clothless. And yet, we speak frequently in here about the spiritual being and the human being, and honoring them both. And we honor the spiritual being by knowing that we are not our bodies, whatever the size or shape or color or age may be. But we honor the human being in us by being aware of the